Hello and welcome to the Kiwi Adviser Network podcast. Today's episode is with David Chamberlain. David, he's been an advisor or in the advice space for 5 years, and he's just recently made a switch to the dark side, so to speak. He's joined me at Trail on the Kiwi Adviser Network. Really interesting hearing about his journey from those years 1 to 5, what it looked like becoming a lone rider type role into graduating, you might say, into more of that advice space. But he's a really good guy. I enjoyed the chat. I think you will too. Remember, this can be logged as your CPD hours, so make sure you chuck it down and enjoy the podcast. David, thank you for joining us today.
Warwick, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's actually not your first time doing a podcast, is it?
I've done one other one, correct? Yeah.
Well-versed.
Well-versed, okay. Yeah.
And the other podcast, it was a Canadian one, right?
It was a Canadian one called I Love Mortgage Broking. And I'm not sure why they had me on, but they wanted the Kiwi take on what our market looks like.
Kind of asking myself the same question. No, just kidding. So, David, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I suppose I completed my degree and was looking for a job, and found one at Westpac up in Auckland. Took the leap up to the big smoke, and started in their finance team. I didn't really know what to expect. I always knew I wanted to be in the bank or around the bank, and spent a year at Westpac. Figured out it wasn't quite the right fit, and got introduced to mortgagehq, which was iRefi at the time.
Great. And how did you, so was it a bit of a call out of the blue that you found your way into that role?
More or less, yeah. It was a friend who had just started working there, Daniel Lippman, and he got me an interview, and that's when I met Chuck, Andrew, and Blannon.
And had you even considered being a mortgage advisor before that point?
No, I mean, to be honest, even after working for the bank for a year, I didn't really know what they did. So it hadn't crossed my mind.
Okay, yeah. So as a new advisor, your first year or so, what did that look like?
First year of advisor, yeah. First year in the company, I was doing everything from prospecting, helping clients refix, doing the support on loan applications, and figuring out whether I actually wanted to be a mortgage advisor or not.
You got to figure it out, eh?
Yeah.
Okay.
I suppose that led to, I was there maybe 6 months, and I went to a Christmas break, came back and was like, I'm gonna give this a real go. And I was in a team at the time with Brandon, who was a very intelligent guy, very good broker, was doing quite high volumes, and I was just there writing, I suppose you'd call it the support for him, helping him close all of his deals. We were doing maybe anywhere from 5 to 10 mil a month, and it gave me huge exposure to a lot of lending.
Great.
Yeah, helped to round out my experience.
Oh, I think it's so crucial, even with Trail, I was working on the support team when I first started.
Yeah.
It helps you. You see things from a different perspective.
You really do. I think, and it's important to note, because working with a lot of people, I mean, mortgagehq got quite large, and there's a lot of people I saw that were really good at their job, but never could see themselves as a mortgage broker. They're very diligent, knew the industry or knew lending inside and out. And I suppose I was like that too. Not a natural salesman, but gained that confidence from being in the support role for a year or so, year and a half.
Sometimes lack of confidence in anything is just because you feel like you don't know what you're doing or don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
But once you kind of
feel like you're lying to the future leads. You're a little, what is it
imposter
called?
syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. Yeah.
I think you've got to have you got to have a little bit of imposter syndrome everywhere you go.
Absolutely.
I still have that big time with this, despite having filmed a few
I've been at
episodes
Trail
now.
about 3 months and still have it. Yeah.
It's all part of life.
It is.
You'd finished your first year or so working on the assistant side of that business, and then you took the step to becoming a mortgage advisor. How did that knowledge take you from like point A to point B? Like, how do you bridge that gap?
Yeah, I suppose I was finishing, so I did support for like a year, and then I spent about 6 months being support and getting my accreditations and all of that. So once I became a mortgage advisor, once again, still support, but also bringing in my own leads and closing my own leads. I say own leads. We had a really good marketing team, so we got quite a bit of support there. The thing was, once you'd done a year as support, you'd already been on the phone so much, so confidence on the phone was already there. Then it's just translating that from, I know what I'm doing, how do I convey that confidence to the client? And that took a lot of learning, and you learn quite a few key lessons along the way as well. Not taking on every client that's there, trying to figure out if there's a good match between you and the client, trying to figure out what potential hurdles would be in the way of this client achieving what they want to achieve. And I suppose that comes into sort of not overselling the client on what you can deliver. All of these sort of learnings happen over the next 6 to 12 months.
I'd like to talk a little bit about, working with the right customer, because as a young broker, you're hungry for business.
Yeah.
How do you say no? How does that thought process come about?
Yeah, it's a learnt skill. As a young broker, I think everyone goes through this, and you just take on what you can get, and you learn after a couple of clients that don't quite go the way you wanted to, that you need to be a lot more selective on who you bring on, because it's the whole 80-20 rule. 20% of your problems, or 80% of your problems are going to come from 20% of your clients. And the way I learned was asking my superiors, how do you tackle these problems? I would say nothing comes to mind right now.
Yeah. I guess sometimes people call you up and they just might not be the right fit. There's certain, questions you ask, and maybe they're not as transparent, or you just don't quite click. And I think you got to have the confidence to say, we're about to get into we're about to get into bed with each other. Yeah, metaphorically. But I want to make sure that you're going to be, prompt, and you're going to be a good person to work with and cooperate and patient.
Yeah. I suppose cheekily I would ask a lot of questions in the upfront. So you're asking and probing, and you do that transition as a salesperson from rant mode, where you just say everything you can do, to question mode, where you're asking the right questions. And as you go through that process, you're kind of figuring out whether it is going to be a right fit. If there's something I can see in the application that's I can't help with, or something that they want that I can't quite get them, that would be where I would say, hey, look, I can't do this for you, but this would be the best avenue for you to go down. Work with the bank directly, or you might be able to get a better result here. If it gets to a point where you could do something with them, but it is just the wrong fit, simply saying, hey, I don't know if we gel, and it's a relationship that's got to be working both ways. So,
and it might be a hard one to pull out because you're working with such a well-oiled machine. But
yeah,
like, were there any lessons you learned that first 6 to 12 months of being a mortgage advisor that maybe you wish that you'd known?
The big one was being able to say no. So as you develop the relationship with the client, you can figure out kind of, with the questions that you ask, what they need or want from the transaction, whether it be pricing, total lending, a certain bank. And as a young broker trying to get as many clients as possible, you're inclined to say yes to everything. It often makes it very tricky down the end of the road when you can't deliver. So saying no and pushing back doesn't mean that you're not going to get the client. But if you can explain it well, it means that it puts their mind frame in the correct way, so that you can work with them in the future.
Great.
Yeah.
And have you had much of a mentoring role, as you got more experienced in terms of helping new advisors?
Yeah, I could say, I've mentored a few brokers coming through the mortgagehq pipeline.
And what are some of the things that you would teach them when they first got started?
Biggest thing is being consistent with calls, with app reviews. There's only a few tasks in the mortgage broker world which generate income or generate results. And it's sort of setting those goals and making sure you stick to them week to week. Blandon, my boss, he was very rigid and very good at doing that. And you could see it in not only his total lending volume or his output, but you could see it in his lifestyle was very consistent. It wasn't it wasn't lumpy and, tons of work one week and then no work the next. It was consistent. Yeah. So working hard on your key inputs was the first task. If they can do that well, they're on the right track, and then it's just learning as you go, not trying to give them too much to learn in one go, just working on small things here and there.
So it can be quite an intimidating industry if you just jump into it.
It is. There's a lot to learn. Yeah.
The that PD day we went to end of last year, and there was that part where they were talking about doing a time audit on your day and revenue generating activities.
Yeah.
And that's one thing, being in a role that I am now, it's quite not too dissimilar to a mortgage advisor where you're trying to bring in your business, but naturally you just get pulled away into certain pockets.
Definitely something I wasn't great at, but you constantly reflect, how was this last quarter? Why didn't I do very well? And often it comes back to spending too much time in the areas where you're not actually generating profit or revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would you structure your day in a way that made sure that you did it? Would you, block it out, or how did you tackle that?
I tried to.
Best of intentions.
Yeah, best of intentions. I definitely tried to. I think I was certainly in a unique position where Mortgage HQ had such a good support model. One of the benefits was we had app reviews booked into our calendar. For the most part, it was, partly booked up, and which is a really good way to keep on top of things. Other than that, once I got to a certain level, you just get natural leads coming through and existing clients wanting to come through and work. But certainly at the start, when I first became a broker, there's that excitement of wanting to do well and grow a trail book and settle deals. So you would often find us there working up until 7 p.m. just trying to get the reviews on. Yeah.
Well done, man. And sometimes if you're a single advisor in your own business, you'd have those meetings with the client. There's that kind of decompression time where you're maybe filling out the application, or you're booking in reviews, you're doing all that stuff. It gives the brain a chance to not switch off. It might not be the right term, but at least you're not on, you're not talking to a client, engaging.
Yeah.
Did you find, if your days, you've got such a good support team, you're stacked up with meetings.
Yeah.
Did you find at the end of the day you were just exhausted? Or
I definitely found that, yeah. Towards the end of the day, exhausted. But I tell you what, when those meetings go well and those calls go well, it actually gives you a lot of energy. And it wasn't until you got home and a flatmate's trying to talk to you and you're like, but I got no energy for this. Yeah, that's probably when you find it. Yeah.
So do you have any examples of, you're a young guy, new to the industry, financial services, all about long-term investments, investing in property. Yeah. Did you ever have any clients who maybe push back on your experience?
I got a number of stories, some that don't come to mind as quickly, but one in particular was a client I worked really hard on, and he was buying his first investment property, taking in all of he was taking a lot of information from outside about investing and stuff, and we get his approval, and at the end he turns around and asks, so do you have an investment property? I said no. I think I was 27 at the time. And he goes, okay, I've been told I need to work with a mortgage broker who has investment properties. I get the angle, but he ended up saying, oh, if you don't have any investment properties, can you pass me to someone in the team who does? And I kind of felt like I'd given him everything he needed, and I didn't want him to waste other people's time. So I actually just ended up telling him to go somewhere else. Yeah, it was an interesting one because,
Could be a tough one to...
Tough one to decide. And the hard one is like, do you decide to give it to another teammate, or do you, have you got a handle on this guy? And I kind of felt like he was just going to waste my teammates' time as well. So it was a good opportunity just to say, hey, look, maybe we're not a good fit. And there's plenty of brokers out there that you'd be a good fit with.
Yeah, I admire that. I think you got to stick to your guns because, when you start, giving in little parts that you'd normally stay true to,
it
starts to creep in other parts of the process. And look, if you did pass them on and then someone else in the team's going, what the hell have you done?
Yeah.
There's plenty of fish out there.
Plenty of fish in the sea, and classic example, classic saying. But you got to find the right client type for you and who you get along well with. And you'll naturally find that those clients enjoy working with you as well, and you get referrals from that.
Did you find there was a particular client base that worked quite well for you? Maybe a particular industry or...
Not a particular industry. I always love working with the first-home buyers. I felt like that was a lot more rewarding. You get them. You get to take them on a journey, a very exciting journey for them. One where you get to upskill their financial literacy. You get to teach them a lot, and for them to trust you in that process as well, it's quite big. Does end up, a lot of calls back and forth, a lot of questions, and they're not quite sure what they're doing, and I just felt like I could be that person in the middle. They've got the lawyer, they've got the real estate agent, and you're someone in the middle that if they can trust, then you can help them quite a bit in that journey. Hopefully lower the stress levels as well.
You can add a lot of value to them, especially for somebody who's brand new. I think back to when we were going through our journey buying our home, and it's when you've taken that first step, so difficult because there's so many different avenues that you've got to figure out and learn about. But having, and in a way, mortgage advisors unfortunately do turn into sort of teachers and coaches about all different types of aspects of property ownership. But
they do emotional support.
Yeah, emotional support therapist.
Yeah.
Did you ever have any tough calls on the weekends of people who are calling you asking for advice?
Not necessarily a weekend, although I did have a call when I was out one night on a Saturday night giving advice while I was about 4 drinks deep.
Oh, okay, yeah. Is that against the law? I don't know.
It should be.
Breath test.
Yeah. Definitely had hard calls in my time. Whether it be, during lockdown, a lot of people unsure or going through financial hardship and guiding them through that process. Probably more recently when the banks changed a lot of their rules due to the triple CFA. 10% lending was off the cards. And, for example, I had one client who I'd worked with it was probably a year she was paying off debts and then building deposit, finally got her approved. And then, a month or two later, had it pulled. That was a hard conversation. But yeah, that's sort of the job you sign up to.
How do you tackle a difficult conversation like that?
To be honest, I have heard of some advice on how to give bad news. My approach is rip the Band-Aid off. Hello, how are you? How's your day going? Hey, look, I have bad news for you.
I usually got some good news and some bad news.
I mean, if I've got a little bit of good news I can give, yeah, I'll chuck that in. But if it's straight bad news, what do you guys?
At the end, they're like, "Was there any good news yet?" No. No.
I liked working with you.
Yeah, you're a good person. I can go and tell you that much for free.
Yeah. It's I often think, hey, look, I got some bad news for you. Is that it's the only way to do it. Preps the mind for the bad news.
I've got some good news. But the good news is, person, you've put all that hard work in, built some really strong habits around your saving goals. And look, I know it might seem like a hard journey getting to that larger deposit, but look at the trajectory you're on. We can get there together.
There you go.
These are good news.
Maybe I'd call that person back.
They're like, what do you mean? I blew it all on black in the casino.
Now I'm trying to get to 20.
Yeah. based on that advice you gave me that Saturday night where you had a few shandies.
Yeah.
No, that didn't happen. Okay, so you were, I saw you were on that top advisor list for a couple of years. No easy feat getting up there. And, how did you, doing volumes like that, you got the support team. How did you find it? Was it tough? Was it hard? Did it come naturally or?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think everyone on that list it is hard to get on. You have to know your stuff, but everyone on that list comes from a different area. So at Mortgage HQ, I had all the support in the world, and there were a lot of leads, endless amount of leads. There were people helping booking them in, people helping you with your existing clients, people helping you write your loans. So it almost felt like there was no other way but to get on that list, if I'm honest. So although it was a big personal achievement for myself, there are people in that list who have done it all on their own back. If there's a one-man band on that list, it's a far bigger achievement than I could have, I could say for myself. But in saying that, what I learned at Mortgage HQ is, within 5 years, getting the experience I got, seeing the volumes I saw, it was a perfect stepping stone to potentially one day do that myself. That's how I would describe it. Yeah.
I remember you chatting on the phone the other week to an advisor, and you were surprised. You did that amount of volume?
Yeah.
Wow. By yourself. Do you have any support? Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah. Honestly, it does. Someone, especially that first 2 years, getting through the first 2 years on your own, I can imagine it's a huge battle, a huge climb up the hill. And to be able to talk to advisors who are doing it is quite rewarding. Yeah.
And what are some things, it's often a bit of a way up for a new advisor coming in, joining a business, starting their own. What do you think some pros and cons are on both sides based on your experience working in a larger organization?
Yeah. Look, there's, in my imagination, there can be no bigger thrill than starting your own business, building your own trail book, having your own clients that you can say is your own. So that excitement, that alone would drive me towards it. But I think being a part of a bigger organization or being under someone who's experienced is almost a must. It's really hard to learn the role of a mortgage broker doing $2 million a month or seeing $2 million a month. So even if you're a support person for someone writing more, or a support person for a couple of advisors, and you're seeing maybe $10 million a month, you learn so much quicker. You learn what others would learn in 1 year. You learn what they would learn in 3 or 4. So I couldn't have asked for a better platform than Mortgage HQ, or there's plenty of other businesses out there that offer something similar. Hard to offer advice on a journey that I haven't taken, being on your own, but it is. I would just block out 1 year and say, hey, look, I've got to get through this year and give it absolutely everything. Yeah.
Having all that experience working on so many different applications, so vital. It's one of the main reasons I can't surf. I can't even get on the wave to practice writing it,
Yeah.
Well, I have once or twice, but
I tried once, I nearly drowned. So.
Yeah, there you go. But then comparison, if you pick up something like skiing, like if you're working in a business already that has leads like Mortgage HQ does, you're getting so many different attempts at it. You fall down, you get back up, have it go straight away.
Yeah.
So starting at the point where you were, working as an assistant, up until this mysterious point down the road where you feel like you'd, maybe got 80-90% of the way there in your knowledge of the industry and products. Like, how long did it take from day dot to that point?
I would say it took me about a year, year and a half. There's still, for me, there was a lot to learn at that stage about being a broker, but being in support and dealing with the volume, about a year, and I found myself gaining all of that confidence that I needed to, even as support, you talk to the client, you're asking for documents, and you're dealing with the bank a lot too. So having those conversations with the bank on a more professional level.
So you'd say maybe about a year, and you felt like you were pretty confident in the role and yourself and the industry?
Yeah. Yeah, about
Great.
a year.
And the training program, getting people set up and to a point where they are confident in their ability. Is it just doing it? Is there other like training programs you went through that helped along the way? Don't say the core strand.
Strategy core strand was, you can't do it without that.
Literally, you cannot.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, there's no better way than being on the front lines and doing it. I think it's the mixture of doing it and then, say like you make a phone call and you've got someone experienced next to you giving you feedback, getting comfortable with the call and adding certain lines in, or once you can hold a basic conversation with someone, ask some basic questions, it becomes a lot easier. Your mind is not engaged on how do I get this client to open up, or, it's more about, listening to what they're saying and trying to fit in certain things that are going to help along the way. Doing it and getting good feedback from someone close to you.
So have you got any, big failures or lessons that you learned during your time as a mortgage advisor?
I think you're constantly learning and taking hits and losses. One small one that comes to mind is when I was first becoming a mortgage advisor and you're getting into the negotiation on rates quite early on in the piece rather than focusing on the bigger value adds. It really hurts. Like I remember, not a specific example, but I remember I used to, they would ask for a certain rate and I would say, yeah, I can get that rate for you. And then sometimes it ends in a situation where the rates have gone up and you can't get what you promised. You learn really quickly from that the battle isn't about rates, or it shouldn't be about rates. Either they're the wrong client fit for you, or you're not focusing on the real benefits, the structure, the total lending amount, what are the future goals of the client? What are they trying to do? Which trying to draw the conversation away from rates especially at the start of the call was probably a big lesson.
Yeah, it's a tough point, especially anything if someone comes in straight away, what's the price? It's like hard to get you a value across if that's all they care about.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, that the clients that ask that, they themselves aren't valuing the relationship and what you do. If they just care about the rates, they can probably look on sorted.co.nz. Is that the rates?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I think it's sorted. Yeah. I mean, you have it on the Trail client portal as well. You can see like the live rates. So
I can just list you all the rates that but using a broker is not about the rate that you can get. It's about the advice that you can get.
Love that.
Yeah. I mean, every mortgage broker will say that. But.
Yeah. Hey, no. Repeating a few things often. That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you're elephant in the room. You're working with me at Trail, Kiwi Adviser Network.
Yeah.
What was the thought process into making the switch from being a mortgage advisor into working for a provider, or software provider, or compliance aggregation supplier to mortgage advisors?
Yeah. Interesting question. I suppose the first part of that question is less about joining here and more about leaving mortgage broking. I felt like in my 5 years I'd done a lot and almost accomplished what I'd wanted to with Mortgage HQ. And I felt like it was my time to leave. So I left and took 4 months off. And that was when I started thinking through what's the next step. How do I want to develop my career? And I knew Chuck from back in the day when Trail used to be part of our refi mortgages. And we were in touch and had a few meetings while I was overseas. The main reason I joined and signed on was because I wanted to round out my sales ability. I enjoy the space of tech sales, working with businesses, trying to solve problems on a business level. And I felt like this was a really good space to do it. I've got some experience, still have a lot to learn, but I can definitely leverage off that experience and confidence to round out a different way of selling. Yeah.
Yeah, love it. Sometimes going away and taking a bit of time to yourself and
a few lonely walks up a mountain. Yeah.
Yeah. And how have you found it on the other side?
It's interesting, yeah. Because I was thinking about this the other day. How my view of aggregators that we worked with before joining, and as a mortgage broker, and it's almost just this large entity that you have to operate through. But now being on the side, you obviously can see the people and the inner workings of what goes into being an aggregator. And yeah, I thoroughly enjoy it. I spend my day calling businesses and talking to them about how they're getting on and what struggles they're coming into, or what big wins that they're running into. I enjoy it, and a small benefit, I get to work with you. So.
Oh, great. Yeah. I think. No, I mean, full disclosure, it works out all right because we even play football together.
Yeah. It was the first time I saw your name, and if I'm honest, I thought it was a joke.
Warwick Slow, yeah.
You change your name on Facebook.
People do. Yeah, maybe I should change it to Warwick Fast officially. No. But it's been really good fun working with you.
Absolutely.
Built a bit of chemistry, and even to the point where we dress the same most days. You ran home at lunch to change your t-shirt because we're wearing similar outfits, which I appreciate.
We have a similar sense of we'll call it fashion.
Fashion, yeah. It's not great, but it's there.
I was telling someone asked how it was going at the new job, and something I really love, and I think it should be the aspiration of any business and their working environment, is being able to celebrate a win. So like I'll get off the phone and Warwick's there ready for a fist bump. It really feels like you're working in a team, and it's that energy that pushes you into the next call and the next call. Yeah. I really appreciate that, man.
Oh, cheers. Hey, you're welcome. You're doing well. Yeah, there's like coming into football. I'm a big football fan, and I support Newcastle United, and they had a big change in management last year. And same thing, celebrating the wins. So every time they got a win, they'd post this photo on social media of everybody celebrating.
Brilliant.
And it's amazing what that type of thing can do for your mindset. Because even sometimes, I feel like you're in the trenches all day, and it's only when you look back and reflect, you're like, wow, we actually achieved a lot.
Yeah.
But you almost just want to celebrate it, and you want to keep pushing on to the next thing. You don't want to sort of rest on your laurels. Yes. But taking a moment.
It also relates to my trip away. I did a little bit of it on my own, about 7 weeks. I'd had 2 weeks of that with Aiden, so 5 weeks in a van traveling around the States by myself. And you often get to these these wonders like Horseshoe Canyon or
Yosemite,
and you're looking out to this incredible landscape, and you kind of just like, what's next? Because you can't celebrate it with someone. You can't, you're not enjoying it with someone. There's nothing to talk about. It's, I think it's similar with the workplaces. If you can't celebrate the wins, you kind of just sit there and either rest on your laurels or
fist bump.
Yeah. So the cheeky fist bump is good.
And look, not everybody's the same. Some people don't need that validation, or they don't need that, high five at the end of the day.
Yeah.
They're just happy seeing their numbers going up, or happy knowing that they're helping their clients. That can be their fist bump.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose it's important to know what what your motivation is, or where you source that from. Yeah.
Oh, mate, I love it. Okay, and what would you say to maybe some advisors looking at this and they wanted to maybe grow their volume, or bring more leads in? Like, was there any type of structure you'd recommend, or some tools they could use?
Trail. Can't plug that.
Yeah, can't plug that. No, well, you can actually plug that.
That's a good question. One that I'm probably not the most, expert in. A big one is, and I'd say most people do it, but probably feel awkward doing it, is asking your existing clients. Calling them up and saying, touching base, and then asking, hey, look, do you have any friends that would value what the journey I took you on? Would they value something similar experience? It's funny how, like, if you do a really good job with a client, it's funny how far they'll go to refer you to other people and want to see you grow as well. But they don't think about that naturally. Asking the question really puts it in their mind.
Same for asking for reviews or anything really.
Yeah. The big benefit of it actually is if you really enjoyed working with that client, they're going to refer people that are similar to them. And you start growing this base of clients that you enjoy working with.
It's the same with us. I feel like our customers who we love, they refer us other customers who I also love working with. And it's great having that. Yeah, sometimes it comes unprompted and it's really special when people do that. But sometimes you've just got to pick up the phone and
ask the question.
Do you ever have people, asking for, give me a Prezi card, or like, anything like that?
Or from a client point of view,
I don't know,
when
sometimes
they're arguing pricing. Yeah.
No, it's like, hey, send us someone. Yeah, what's in it for me?
Yeah. Not. I mean, we used to do it, but that wasn't the motivation for why they would do it. They, depending on the type of person they were, it was more they wanted to help their friends out. They've been through a journey and all of a sudden they're on the other end. They've got increased financial literacy and, they see their friend about to buy their first home and go, hey, look,
you got to speak to this person.
You've got to speak to this guy. Yeah. That's why it's really important to that whole journey that client goes on. It may be mundane in your daily work, but for them, it's every interaction it's like huge.
David, thanks so much for joining us today. I think it's been great to hear about your journey from, year 1 to year 5 to where you are now and some of the lessons you learned on the way.
Yeah.
How do people reach you?
02. Now you can just reach out. I'll probably be on the Can Trail website. So if you want any help or you want to be pointed in the right direction, more than happy to assist. Yeah. Thanks for having me, Warwick.
It was a pleasure.
Cheers.
Right. I'll see you at the after work drinks.
Yeah, sounds good.